Hi there, everybody. So the Geneva Auto Show is going on this week. Just started, I guess, over the weekend. And we had last talked about the Jaguar I-Pace, and it appears that Porsche wanted to make sure that they got a little bit of chit-chat going in the auto show season. So they have unveiled what they're calling their Mission E Cross Turismo. Now, what this looks like, kind of, is the new Porsche Panamera has a, I think they call it the Sport Turismo, and it's basically a brake or a wagon version of the Panamera. And they have also been testing the Mission E sedan, or fastback. It'll be a 5-door like the Model S. That, at least I think that's what it's supposed to be. But it'll basically be kind of an electric version of the Panamera that's not due out until 2020 something, because that's what everything seems to be coming out with the due date of. And it's kind of like they took the Mission E and grafted on this station wagon version of the Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo. And I have to say, it's kind of an interesting look. They've also given it some cladding, and they've given it some fender flares, and a few other details that make it look a lot like the Subaru Outback version of the Panamera brake. And it's not an objectionable look. It's kind of like a really expensive like Subaru Crosstrek, kind of like if there was a Crosstrek WRX STI, that's sort of what they're going for, but electric. And one little detail that I did notice that I did kind of like was they inset in the hood some, I don't know if they're driving lights or they're fog lights, but it's kind of different. It reminded me of when I was growing up in Germany as an Army brat. My dad was in the U.S. Army. When I was growing up in Germany in the late 80s, there were a lot of Porsche 911s that were sold with these add-on fog lights, and they sat right on the hood, and they were kind of cool, if I'm honest. I always thought they were kind of cool, gave it sort of a rally car look. And these are sort of like the modern version of that, but they're actually cut into the hood. That's probably the biggest change. I could see a lot of people wanting to, ruggedize their Mission E sedans at some point, deciding that the way to do that is to add the Cross Turismo's hood. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Overall, it's a very interesting looking car, and is just like everything else Porsche is putting out, in that it has this coming soon sort of thing to it. 2021, who knows when they'll actually offer something for sale. The ongoing question is, are they building the actual charging network to support these cars? Maybe, maybe not. Certainly not as fast as they could be, but maybe that's asking too much. But that's a whole other side thing. Let's talk about the car itself. We know it'll be expensive. We know that it's going to have ridiculous add-ons as far as options go, because that's kind of how Porsche does things. They've been doing that in their regular cars, in their configurators for years now, where you would go on and they would charge you hundreds of dollars just to paint the logo in the center caps of the wheels and stuff like that. So it will not likely come anywhere near the Tesla Model S in price. It will likely be substantially more. In fact, I would be shocked if the base price of a Mission E Cross Turismo was anywhere near the top price of a ludicrous P100D or whatever the equivalent at the time is. I think that there will be very little overlap in the price, but that's just a guess. We'll see if I'm right in another, 4 or 5 years. The styling of it is pretty clean on the back. Like I said, it's a little choppy and aggressive on the front. With the exception of those lights in the hood, there's nothing particularly new about the way it looks. That's the downside of releasing the Mission E pictures and driving the Mission E concepts around all this time, is the look of the car is going to be, I think, a little overly familiar by the time it's released if they stay with that nose. It's going to, at least to the people that have been following the car, it's going to seem kind of familiar, and not in a good way at that point. What else was I going to say? Oh, it doesn't seem to have a lot of storage. It seems to be a much smaller car. It has 4 seats, and I don't see that there's a lot of room in the way they've styled the prototype anyway to add a 5th seat in the back, and there certainly isn't enough to do the rumble seats, or whatever you want to call them, the jump seats that the Model S has. But notably, the dimensions of the Cross Turismo are actually very, very close to the Model S. And it's like a little bit shorter by like an inch. It's like, I think, about within an inch of the height even though it has this sort of crossover look, whereas obviously the Model S doesn't. And it's actually wider than the Model S, which seems an unusual choice. I have to assume that if it's based on the Mission E prototype sedan, that the Mission E sedan is also going to be pretty close to the Model S in width, if not slightly wider. And that seems like an odd choice for a car that's being made by a German company, when one of the big complaints about the Model S overseas is that it's too wide. Why would you make a car the same width? Speed-wise, it's in the same ballpark as the current Model S. Who knows what Tesla's going to have up their sleeve at that point. The glass roof, just like the I-Pace, seems to be kind of a standard thing now. I won't say that Tesla started that, because obviously we've had glass roofs on cars going much farther back than that, but I feel like they're one of the companies that has kind of made it a popular feature among the next generation of electric cars. The rear bumper is a little strange. It kind of has these strakes in it and this big black area that makes it look like a tugboat a little bit, in my opinion. Not really a fan of that. The range of it is supposed to be less than the current Model S, and the speed, like I said, is kind of on par with the mid-range of the Model S, not the performance. So it seems like kind of some strange benchmarks to be putting out and touting on a car that's still years away from dealerships, that you're under the current competitor's car in range and over them in acceleration. Like, that's kind of an odd thing to me. Again, there's no charging network, but again, this could all change in 3 years, which kind of brings me to my biggest gripe about all of these Porsche things is they do a lot of talking and they do a lot of showing. They keep driving these cars around and they're making sure that the spy photographers see them being tested against the Model S. Don't think for a second that those are coincidental photos that get out there. But if it's like 3 years from going on sale, like, what the hell, Porsche? Like, quit teasing. Just, why don't you put something out there? It's really easy to sit on the sidelines and talk about how much better your team is. But if you're years away from actually putting product on there, why don't you just keep it in a warehouse under wraps and develop it in quiet, and you let us know when you actually have something to sell. That's kind of my opinion. I'm kind of getting tired of it, because I just feel like it's like, all right, enough. Let's get the actual car out there. That said, the one thing I do like about the Mission E is the interior is gorgeous. I mean, and this has been what I've been saying for a long time, is that it's very easy to make the outside of a car look modern and futuristic, because you're not dealing with a lot of surfaces, but being able to make the interior modern, futuristic, and luxurious or sporty or whatever is a lot harder to do, and this is evidenced by Tesla, which is really known for their exterior styling and also for their interiors coming up just a little bit short on some of the quality features and the luxury accoutrement. And again, this is going off the Cross Turismo Concept car, but the Concept car has a lot of really interesting touches that kind of make me wonder what will Tesla be doing when they refresh the Model S, which they will. I mean, I would be shocked if there wasn't a refresh Model S out in 3 years, which is all the more reason why I can't understand why Porsche is taking so darn long to bring this to market, because surely there will be a new Model S by then. There may be a refresh of the redone Model S by then, based on how quickly they tend to move these cars. I mean, they refreshed the first Model S after 3 years, so it's kind of a... But anyway, the interior is really cool. It has a display on the main part of the dash, and then the center strip here has more touch displays, and then on the sloped section in the lower console there is another display, or appears to be another display. So it's hard to tell whether it's 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screen, or 1 screen and then 2 here and then 1 down there for a total of 4. But what they don't have is 1 big monolithic monitor like the Tesla has, and I think that's actually a better way to go. I mean, this is very handy for things like the maps and stuff like that, but and it does give you a functionality as far as, you know, flipping the screens and moving things around and making the maps full screen and stuff like that. Whereas if you had 1 long skinny screen or a couple of screens kind of breaking that up, it would be harder to reconfigure things. But I think for most people, most applications, having a couple screens that are a little bit more dedicated to a limited number of functions might actually work better for them. you know, like your bottom screen would only be radio and HVAC, and you could toggle back and forth, and your top screen would be like navigation and settings or something, and you only toggle back and forth between those two. Like, that might not be a bad way to go from a simplicity standpoint, because the menu at the top of the screen does get a little cluttered, and it's a little annoying with now that they have it enabled with this weird drop down thing where you have to tap it to get the menu to go, which I don't like, but whatever. Most of the time it's on nav, so it doesn't really matter. So I thought that was really nice. The general cabin materials and all of that presentation looks to be really, really good, as you would expect from Porsche. I think the seats are a little over the top. That's a concept car. We're not going to see that in the production, but we may see something very similar to it. So who's to say? What else did I want to say? Yeah, so generally speaking, I'll be interested to see if in the Model S refresh, whenever that comes, but it'll certainly be before then, whether they continue to go with one large screen or not. Now, here's what I do think could potentially kill the Model S refresh, is if they go to a Model 3 style interior. I just don't think that that is going to be a conquest design. I think that the Model 3 is its own thing, and applying that big open dash with only one display is just not the way to go. But Tesla doesn't usually listen to what I have to say design-wise, and I bought their car. I like their design, but it'll be interesting to see how they do it. And if Porsche does a little bit more traditional dash layout, which it appears that they're considering, with just making those screens, that will be on par with what the other German manufacturers are doing, Mercedes, Audi, all those guys. That's kind of what they're doing, and they all look good. I happen to be pretty impressed with most of what their upcoming interiors look like. It's a little more traditional, but I think that it's a good overall look. So we will see when they actually get these cars on the road if there's anything to write home about or not. But that's my quick take on the Porsche Mission E Cross Turismo, and I hope to see more soon from Porsche. And really, it would help me if you would click the subscribe button, because I still need to get those numbers up to keep doing these. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. I did have somebody ask me what I meant by putting stuff on my calendar, and sometimes I do put it on my phone calendar so that I can have my notes up there. But this time I just went the old school way, just stuck a piece of paper on there. So here's my notes on the Mission E, and I think I touched everything. Yeah, maybe? I don't know. So that's how it goes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe.